Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, and today we talk Christ Illusion by Slayer. Now, wow. This is, in my opinion, one of the most criminally underrated albums in Slayer's discography. It's so good. Released in 2006, so about 12 years this album came out. Now, originally, this album was going to be released on June 6th, 2006. 666. But I think there was some issues and stuff, so it was pushed back to August 8th. And yeah, and one thing to note is Dave Lombardo is back on drums, which is great. After Paul Bostoff, I think, had left due to I guess an injury or something, then they decided to get Dave Lombardo back, and my God, I am glad he's back. In my opinion, one of my favorite drummers ever, probably along with Mike Portnoy and stuff. But yeah, this I feel like is probably the best album Slayer has done since probably Bleed Seasons in the Abyss. And like I said, this album is so criminally underrated. Everything is pretty much where it needs to be after their last couple albums were kind of meh, but I feel like this album right here is sort of the return of form to what Slayer is supposed to be. Yeah, but yeah, the production wise, it's just pure, just raw sounding, just aggressive. The guitars from Jeff and Carey just sound just very thick sounding. The drumming, especially since Dave Lombardo, is the first album that he's been on since I believe Seasons in the Abyss. It's a great way just to get back behind the kit. The Tom Araya is just sounding pretty sick as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this track by track. Now, the album opens up with Flush Storm, which is easily one of Slayer's best songs ever written. It's a noiseless intro, slowly building up until you hit a wall with thrashing guitars and Dave pounding away with such ferocity that was like something from War Ensemble. And the riffing is kind of similar, as there's no fancy fills or anything. It's just straight up palm muting power that grinds away to your head. And the chorus, however, is kind of slightly different as some of the classic Slayer riffs fly over. It's an amazing album opener and easily the best on this album. And then the brutal onset continues with Catalyst. Now, before I heard this track, I was kind of skeptical about it. I have read that was kind of left over from what I've heard God Hates Us All, which however Catalyst has almost nothing to do with that album at all, which is probably why it was cut. It's a shredding song from start to finish with thick riffs and a very wicked chorus that features some Eastern style riffs, and it's great follow-up to Flush Storm. Skeleton Christ continues the hostility with some very repetitive and chugging and blasting bass drums, but there are some quick variations sort of here and there before it moves into straightforward ripping in your face chorus. And the bridge is very interesting with a slower yet more creepy atmosphere. And the song ends on sort of a more metalcore breakdown feel, which is quite intriguing. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the next song would have bring the level of intensity down just kind of a few notches, but I guess that's just a little nitpick, which we'll go into the next song, which is Eyes of the Insane, which is a good song in its own right, but it doesn't come close to rest of the songs on here. It's a slow chugging one, while it's a frantic machine gun type riffing, and it's cool during the pre-chorus and the bridge of it. It's not enough to keep this album up to par with the rest of the track. It's short, but it seems kind of drags out too long. However, with that aside, Jihad will rip your mind out of your head and just fucking rape it. But not only does it match the opener and the quality, it's very artistic if you just take the chance to listen to it. It starts off kind of completely unslayer with sort of a weird guitar effect that flows into a riff that seems like it could be in something from Seasons in the Abyss. Jihad then pounds away with lightning fast blazing guitars that speed up and then slow down for a mere second before they just continue sort of the onslaught. On the chorus, this is a bit of a climber as it sort of gets higher and higher, but what happens after the chorus is amazing. Sort of Middle Eastern type fills. It's incredibly cool. Then we go into Conspiracy. Comes right out of the gate with sort of one guitar slowly climbing up, while sort of the one throws out split second riffs. riffs and the notes, and sort of like Dave's just blasting away on the drums. It moves into a straightforward thrash, and it's just really good. Catatonic comes in very slowly, and it stays that way throughout the whole time. The opening riffs are quite cool, and both guitars throw out some really great imaginative riffs, and sort of like the guitars sort of like repeats very softly, and the riffs appear almost later, and it sort of like connects it all from the beginning. And it's just a good song. And then we go into Black Serenade, which comes in sort of like slower than like the past two tracks, but it's not a bad thing at all. The intro and main riff is mainly built on like a few palm mutes, followed by like a climbing fill that is repeated throughout the whole entire song. And then this spills into like the verses and another straightforward punky riff to it. And then the second to last song that pretty much everyone that listens to Slayer should be familiar with now is the song called Cult. It's just, Cult is like a blender, which I have stated which has a low tension build up single guitar intro leading into like a slow low plodding riff that soon transforms. And the song is like built on some speed, hitting off some incredible drumming. I mean, it pretty much gets that job done. And then we go into the last song on the album, which is Supremacist, which doesn't come close to one of those. It's more of a solid song in its own right, coming straight off the bat with sort of like this new wave of British heavy metal, little sped riffs that were kind of like similar to like On Show No Mercy. It quickly transforms into one of those faster songs that thick palm mutes. And the chorus features some like slower flowing guitars, but Dave sort of like keeps up the speed with some of his amazing drum work. And the bridge is quite different, with some weird like chugging patterns before it flows back into straightforward riffing. And near the end, it slows down completely to add sort of like an eerie atmosphere. And then it finishes off like Raining Blood with sort of guitars just mindlessly throwing some random effects. Now, overall, Christ's Illusion is a really good album. Sort of like a return to form from their previous two albums. If I were to give this album a score, I definitely give this a solid 9 out of 10. It's a good album, good return to form. It's pretty much what Slayer was supposed to be, like their best since Seasons in the Abyss, in my opinion. But yeah, that's my review of Christ's Illusion, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it. And I'll see you all in the next review, and keep it metal.